Welcome back to the Messy Friendship Lessons podcast. Woo! Do you know what I was thinking on the way over here? I was like, this actually isn't the first Messy Friendship Lessons podcast episode we've recorded together.
We recorded one like a couple of years ago in your house in Lagos.
Yeah, but it never came out. Unreleased. My guest for today's episode is
Araya.
Arayo from, because I know where you're from Real With.
Oh, my podcast, Araya from Real With Raya, the podcast that celebrates self-development and learning.
And it's so crazy because when we did that episode of Messy Friendship Lessons that no one is ever going to listen to, we sat down and we talked about podcasts. And I was like, oh, I've started this podcast. And you were like, yeah, Thomas and I really want to start a podcast. This is like my idea.
Yeah.
You know, you were thinking of like a logo at the time. You didn't know what logo, what you're going to do. And like, now look, her podcast is amazing. You can get it, watch it on YouTube as well. You know, video if you want to see her beautiful face.
Ooh. Thank you very much. Yes, it's on all audio platforms and visuals are on YouTube.
Yeah, love it. Okay, today's episode title is How to Lose a Friend in 10 Days. And we are going to be talking about how to end friendships, or at least discussing ending friendships.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I think ending friendships is always difficult, especially when you have a genuine bond with someone. It's never an easy thing to do, but I do think the older you get and the more clarity you have about what you require from a friend, and after ending one friendship, I think it gets easier.
You could end them all?
Yeah, like, I mean, obviously you don't. You shouldn't be ending all your friendships, but at least for me anyway, you just become stronger and you know that it's for the best.
I love that. I feel like that summarizes the what's the right word? The message of this episode quite well. But before we delve into how to lose a friend in 10 days, we always do a friendship hot take. So what's going to happen is I'm going to say a hot take. You're going to vote yay or nay. Okay. You're going to say a hot take. We're going to vote yay or nay. People listening can vote yay or nay. If you need to defend your hot take a bit, you know, we can do that. And then we'll get into ending friendships. So as my guest, I will let you go first. What's your friendship hot take?
My friendship hot take is I don't really want to be friends with people that were not raised similarly to me.
That is a hot take in my opinion.
I know it is very controversial.
Okay.
But I think we're going to leave it as that.
No. I need a little bit more than that before I vote yay or nay. Because I get it, but I need a bit more.
Yeah, okay. Just because it's you. For me, I just think it eliminates a lot of future issues. I think when you were raised similarly as someone, you have a common ground that is beyond your personal likes and dislikes. It's like your morals and your values. You have common values and you also have expectations from each other that I think translates from just the way you were raised. And I do think sometimes we underestimate that because your upbringing says a lot about who you are, but it also shapes your values and your morals and just how you see the world as well and how you view other people. And in my experience, like I've had the same best friend. One of my best friends, I've been best friends with her since we were 3. Most of my friends, I've been best friends with them since we were in primary school, secondary school. And upon reflection, I genuinely think one of the reasons why, of course, like we love each other and, you know, we have a lot in common and we have good times and they're great, great girls. Mm-hmm. But I also think it's because we were raised similarly. And that eliminates a lot of things that I've encountered with other people that were not raised the same way. So moving forward, not to say I'm not going to make friends with people that are not like They were not raised the same way
yeah.
I was, because that's just backwards. That's
Okay.
that's very no. Do you know what I mean? That's very regressive. Yeah.
I get what you're saying fully. So I'm gonna vote like a half, like a yay nay.
Yeah.
Because I fully agree with you. I think friendship is about being like-minded.
Yeah.
And so it's so easy to be like-minded with people who have the same upbringing. And I also agree with you that upbringing kind of, it reflects itself in your like moral values and like things, and also understanding of things, like culturally. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some misunderstandings that someone will take something a completely different way, that with someone who had a similar upbringing, you understand like, oh, this is like jokes, or oh, this is just how we handle X situation, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have like one or two close friends who I would say our upbringing is actually very different.
Yeah.
But we still are able to have that common ground.
Yeah.
And yes, maybe sometimes it would take. I mean, I feel like that's all out the way now, because I've been the people I'm thinking of, I've been friends with them as well since I was very young.
Yeah.
But I think it might take explaining certain things when like those hiccups come. Yeah. But I feel like we're still able to have a bond that I really value. So that's why I say yay nay. But at the same time, I think I just imagine when you start having kids and you're building your village, in some of my friends, something I've been doing recently, which I don't know, but I've been thinking like, would I, like, it's all fair and good if I'm like, I have my beliefs, you have yours, but it's like, would I want my child to be around you? Yeah. And if the answer is no, why am I friends with you?
Would I even trust you to be around my children?
Exactly.
Because also, if my children are in your, I mean, this is all like, I personally, I'm not really having kids anytime. So
yeah, no, this is,
you know, it's like future talk.
We are young.
Yeah, but when my child is at your house, I want to have complete trust that they're in an environment that reflects what I'm also teaching my children.
Yes.
So that's what I also mean. It's like, we're on the same page about a lot of things. And I mean, it is controversial.
It's a hot take.
If you don't agree. But...
Yeah, because it's a hot take. I don't care if you don't agree, because it's a hot take.
As of now, and I might change my mind in a couple of years, but as of now, this is where I stand.
Okay, I will tell my hot take. I think my hot take is actually hot take.
What's your hot take?
There's this whole thing going on right now, low maintenance friendship. I think some of you are not low maintenance friends, you're low quality friends.
Ooh, spicy.
And that is that's it. I think some people are hiding behind being a low maintenance friend as an excuse to be a bad friend. Yeah. I think in friendship, you should be able to depend on each other. Mm-hmm. We've become such like a very individualized society that we forget that like there is such a huge importance in having a community and friends. Absolutely. How are you saying you're low maintenance friends? I'm calling you, you're blanking my calls. I'm saying, oh, can we meet up and hang out? You're not replying. But then once in a blue moon, you send me happy birthday and you attend my birthday party. You're not a great friend. Yeah. Like, that isn't low maintenance friendships. That's an acquaintance. That's a low quality friendship. Yeah. And I think people are like, oh yeah, we don't have to see each other for all the time. I don't have to reply to your messages. I don't even have to be nice to you. But somehow our friendship survives. Like, friendship is community. I should be able to depend on you. Yeah. I should be able to be like, I'm going through a tough time. I can call this person. Yeah. Or like, I want to celebrate. I can reach out to this person and message them. You can't do that with somebody who doesn't reply to your messages until the next month. You know? There's no consistency there. And I also think consistency builds a great friendship. Mm-hmm. Like we both spoke about having friends for such a long time. That's as a result of consistency. That's so true. You wouldn't have this strong, solid friendship if there was no consistency there. So definitely, I agree with that 100%. Yeah. And also, I also feel like even on consistency, that consistency is natural. It's not maintenance. Yeah. You know what I mean? I feel like even the idea of friendships being maintenance, I do think, obviously, I've talked a lot about conflict resolution in this podcast and like working on relationships for sure. But I don't think friendships should like every day feel like work, like you're maintaining something. Absolutely. This is something you want. It's not something you're like trying to keep up. Yeah. But yeah. Agreed. Okay, so you're voting yay on my hot take. Yay! Okay, 2 years. Let us know what you think, guys. Yay or nay to Araya's hot take. Yay or nay to my hot take. Anyway, we are going to get into today's episode. How to Lose a Friend in 10 Days. So I sent
That's a great title, by the way.
Thank you. I played on How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Yeah. We have a structure for this episode because I want to help you guys, and I also want this to flow well. So we're gonna first cover when is it time to lose a friend. Then we are gonna do how do you lose a friend, so how do you end friendships, and then we're gonna talk about the aftermath to conclude our discussion. Okay? So my first question for us is there a definitive line between a friendship worth fighting for and one that's better to let go? How do you navigate that line?
I should go first?
You can go first.
Okay. I think the definitive line is the pattern of behavior. I think
it's a good one.
If you were in a position where you wanted to end a friendship, I do think you have to be objective in your evaluation and think, what is the pattern of behavior? Has this person done more right than wrongs or more wrongs than right? And everyone has different boundaries and thresholds. So I think that would also play a part in knowing when to end a friendship.
When to keep fighting.
Keep fighting or when to end it, yeah.
I like pattern of behavior. Another thing I would say is, like I said earlier with the hot takes, friends are like-minded. And I personally would say that line for me is when it's starting to conflict with my values or beliefs or morals or like the way I view the world with the way I want to treat people.
Yeah.
If I feel like a friend is either pulling me away from that, or pushing me towards something I don't want to do, or we've like fundamentally disagreed on something like that, then I think that would be the line for me on whether, look, it's time to let go because we're actually no longer like-minded.
Right.
We are different people. And obviously you can be friends with someone with differences, but friendship is about being like-minded.
Yeah.
You can respect someone that's different from you. You don't actually have to be their friend.
Yeah.
Because usually when like-mindedness is gone, there's usually no peace and like you keep encountering the same things or butting heads and it just... Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, moving on then. Is there a risk of romanticizing past memories or overlooking current issues when holding onto a friendship because of its history? How can individuals objectively evaluate the present state of their friendship? So I was thinking, like, we're talking about when is the time to lose a friend in this bit, right? So I'm like, sometimes, especially with like both of us who have long friendships, sometimes I found that I've tolerated or stayed for a long time in something because I'm like, oh, I've just known you for so long. And there was like, we have such a great history, even when maybe the current state of that relationship or friendship wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
So I think that's where my frame comes to that question. When is it time to like lose a friend? Because is there a risk of romanticizing that? Your thoughts?
It's definitely something I've struggled with before because I romanticize everything. Oh my gosh.
Love girl.
I'm such a lover girl. And I also don't like conflict. I don't like being in positions where I have to confront conflict. I don't have a problem doing it because if I need to, I'll do it. But I'm someone where a lot of things don't really bother me that much. But when I feel very passionately about something, I have to address it because it actually bothers me. So that being said, I sit with myself a lot and then I start thinking like, oh, but is it worth addressing? Like, is it really, like, is this worth a potential loss of a friendship? I just think you have to be honest with yourself and also be honest with what you can tolerate. Everyone is different. What's a deal breaker for me in a friendship might not be a deal breaker for you. And I just think when you're honest with yourself and honest with your friend, you can't really go wrong because that way you're both on the same page. So there's nothing wrong with romanticizing it, but as long as it gets to a point where you take those rose-tinted spectacles off and you see things for what it actually is, because that's the problem. The problem is when you still linger in a state of just romanticizing the friendship.
Yeah.
So I do think the point where you have to evaluate it for what it is when it conflicts with your personal boundaries or thresholds.
That's true.
I think that's when it's like, okay, this needs to be addressed.
I agree with you fully. I think I would take a step back because I'm the same. I do romanticize, but mine is so, I'm a very, this sounds so silly, loyal person. Yeah. When I was about to say it, I was like, ew, why am I saying that? No, but I am a very loyal person. Same. And I don't know, when I care about someone, I feel a loyalty to them. And sometimes that loyalty can be misguided because, because of that loyalty, I end up compromising self. Yeah. And I think that's the thing about history with someone and romanticizing that. Yeah. It's so tied to that loyalty and like, oh, they were there for me with this and this and this and this. Yeah. But you're not seeing what is the current state. Exactly. So to look at the current state, I would take a step back and think about all the things I appreciate that person for and what is so amazing about this friendship. And then I'd be like, has that person done any of these things in the last year or 5-6 months?
That's a great point, actually. Yeah.
If you sit back and you're like, no. Yeah. You're like, nothing. If the list is like, they're always there for me, like, we always have so much fun when we hang out together, I feel like I can be vulnerable around them. And you sit back and you're like, okay, in the last year, have I felt like I could be vulnerable around them? No. Are they there for me? No. Actually, they did this and this. And then suddenly you realize everything that I value and I'm loyal to this friendship for is no longer present in the current reality of this friendship. So you're going to add?
No, that was such a great point because I think it's really easy, especially when you have long history with someone, to hold them to who they were like 2-3 years ago, even good and bad way, because I've actually also done it in like the negative way, where I've been in a position where someone did something to me like 2 years ago and then they did something else recently that reminded me of that and it triggered me and they were trying to tell me like, Araya, but I'm not this person again that I was 2 years ago. And I actually had to, even though I in my head I'd forgiven that person, but I had to let go of that, that thing that was just, I kept holding on to subconsciously. Right. So I think it can work both ways. So that's why I really love the point that you made. So when you made the point about look at it from the past year, have they done this behavior for the past year? And if the answer is yes or no, then you just act accordingly.
Exactly, because I think that will help you objectively evaluate and like bring you back to earth, because you'll be like, oh, well, these are all things I'm romanticizing and none of that exists right now. And it's like, okay, well, what do I do with this information? So, and it can tell you whether you need to lose the friend, which we're going to get into how to do that. My last question on when is it time to lose a friend is, can seeking outside perspective, such as from mutual friends or therapists, help individuals gain clarity on whether to end a friendship or hold on to it because of its history? What role can external support play in the decision-making process?
Quite a big role, I think, because whether we like to admit it or not, we are, or we can be influenced by external
100%.
Not circumstances, but external influences, right? So definitely a big part. I don't know, I'm quite a strong-minded person, so for me it's like I'll listen to what you have to say, but I'll do what I want at the end of the day. Good and bad. But I definitely think people need to tread carefully when getting external advice about their friends, because if I'm having an issue or a problem with someone and I'm telling you, I'm venting to you about it, I'm saying this is what's been happening. If I'm venting to you in a moment where we're going through like a rough patch, that might not be reflective of all the other positive things that this person has done. And if the external influence doesn't know both parties, it's hard for them to give an objective answer. Like, respectfully, if you come to tell me about a friend that you're having an issue with, for example, I try and be objective, but naturally I am going to have an allegiance towards your side because that's the side I've heard.
Yeah.
So, especially, I think if you are going to get external influences, either get an opinion from someone who's completely objective, so maybe like a therapist that doesn't.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't know. But yeah,
because some people be presenting things very different to their therapist.
Exactly.
No shade, just facts.
No, it's true. And sometimes it's about perspective, because the way you relay that story, the perspective that you've given or you are giving this external influence could be completely different to how the other person is even looking at the situation.
I always say your perception is your reality.
Exactly. So I don't know. I think I like to. I just think know yourself. When you really spend time with yourself, you have clarity about your boundaries, you have clarity about who you are and the type of people or person you want around you, and that will ultimately help you navigate an issue you're going through with a friend. Because I think more often than not, are you really telling the truth about every single thing that happened in that instance?
That's
or
true.
Also giving that person a fair narrative about who they are to the external influence? Like, are you also telling them the positive traits, you know? So, yeah, I just think try and go within, because we know ourselves better than other people know us. Or we should aim to know ourselves. So, go with your guts. You know?
I hear you. I think I like, there's something interesting you said at the end. You said we know ourselves better than other people know us. And I was like, we know our thought processes and everything. And some of us really do know ourselves better than other people know us. But I think sometimes people around you can see your blind spots.
Yeah.
Can see the things even about yourself that you don't see are like flaws or things to work on. Or even things about yourself that are great that you're completely blinded to how like amazing you are, because people do be like that.
Yeah, of course.
You know? So like, but I agree with you. I think you have to be very careful who you go to for that external support. I'm not going to rehash the points you made because I actually agree with all of them. My main external support, if I reflect from me, when I have issues with someone, I pray about it first and I go to God first. Because I genuinely feel like the Holy Spirit guides me on how to deal with the situation. But I speak to people who I believe are wise counsel and who I know like have the understanding that you have. I know, Araya has an understanding that, you know what, there's going to be perspectives to this. Somebody who doesn't, because I like to have friends that don't like go, like if I come to you about something or even someone or a situation I'm going through and you're like, yeah, this is so bad, like you're really in the pits of it, you're helping me like wallow, do you get me? Or like, oh my gosh, they're the worst person ever. You should hate this person. Wow, how could they do that to you? I want more of a friend that will like ask me questions and like make me, like you said, reflect on myself.
Right.
Basically what you were saying of like sitting with yourself. I would want someone, not somebody who would be like, oh, are you sure you didn't look at like on every single thing, obviously, because that's annoying. But someone who is has the understanding that you have, that you know what, there's probably multiple perspectives to this. Have you asked them this? Like, is there more to this than this, you know? And just highlight to you there might be ways you are not reflecting on this. But I do agree, when you go to other people, perception. Also, sometimes the people you go to, my mom always says this, I don't know, I can't remember the right phrasing, but it's like everyone gives advice selfishly or something like that. Not basically, just basically being like, not on purpose, obviously, but we all reflect on our past things. For example, something I've been through is having friends talk behind my back. Right? So if you come to me, let's say there was a misunderstanding and your friend said something behind your back and you found out and it wasn't malicious, but still you were like, and then she said that and I wasn't in the room. There is part of my pain that I try not to, but could jump to like, cut her. She's not your real friend. Whereas there could be so much more to what it is. But because of my experience, I'm like, no, anyone who talks behind your back needs to go.
We all do that. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's such a good point. Shout out to Auntie Margaret. Love you.
Now on to how do you lose a friend? We are gonna give you advice on how to end a friendship. I think this is, like you said, really hard. I also think it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, very awkward.
My first question is ghosting ever an acceptable way to end a friendship? Or does it always necessitate, I can't speak English today, does it always necessitate a conversation?
I think so. I don't think you should ever ghost a friend or ghost anyone. I'm a bit hypocritical because I have ghosted before. Not friends though, but men. But no, I think you should definitely. It's just a respect thing as well. I think if you have a bond with someone and they've done something wrong, I like to always give people the benefit of doubt and just give them an opportunity to for them to hear me out and for me to hear them out and see if we can resolve the situation.
Yeah.
So I think everyone deserves just that respect of conversation.
I agree. Because if you think about it, maybe you don't want to be friends with them anymore, but there's a reason you want to be friends with them in the first place.
Exactly.
And there's a reason you have a friendship in the first place. So out of respect for that, I would say have a conversation. No ghosting if you're genuinely friends with someone. Although, what do you consider ghosting?
I think ghosting is anything, any aftermath of a situation that has not involved a conversation and proper communication. I do think it's ghosting because it leaves the other person feeling confused and uneasy, like, oh, what went wrong? Because in your head you can think, well, it's so obvious and there's a pattern of behavior, like I said earlier on, but if that isn't communicated to the other person, I don't think it's fair to just switch up, because I just think everyone deserves a chance, and how that conversation goes, then of course you can act accordingly. But
I agree with you. It's not fair to switch up. Does it always necessitate a conversation? On that point, I don't think it always is necessary to have like a sit-down conversation, because I think with ending friendships, sometimes you can actually grow apart from someone naturally.
Yeah.
I think if you're making a conscious decision to like, and obviously if you've grown apart from someone, I don't think you need to like pull them back and be like, we haven't hung out in a while.
Yeah.
Things have changed and I don't want to be your friend. I feel like it's only if you're consciously ending an active friendship that I would say you need to sit someone down. But I was speaking to someone about us doing this episode, and they were like, someone they know, their friend invited them out for coffee, and they thought like, oh, cute coffee date. She was like, oh, really cute coffee date, whatever, and then she invited them out and ended the friendship on this.
Oh.
So like proper like kind of like a man would do, like take you out for a nice dinner and then break up with you. So she said that the person she knew, like, it was like shocking, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if it requires a conversation, like you said, where should that conversation take place? How does one initiate such a conversation? Because I don't like the idea of inviting someone out for coffee and then like dumping them.
No, definitely. That's really hurtful. So the question is, when should you?
Yeah. Like, how should you do it?
How should you have?
If you're saying we need a conversation,
right.
A phone call.
Yeah, a phone call. I think like everything is circumstantial, right? And depending on what the situation is and the type of friendship you have with that person, I think you can adapt the conversation to the type of friendship you have. So I would probably do a phone call and just be like, let's jump on a call and just talk it out.
Okay.
Because also, I like to just nip things in the bud. And unless it's a friend that I'm seeing, like we see each other quite often, then I just think, what's the point of, let's say we haven't actually seen each other in 2 months, and then I invite you out for coffee and then I'm telling you about all of this. It just seems a bit disjointed. And I don't know, I wouldn't do that. So, yeah, definitely like a phone call. I always like to, I'm quite like direct about how I feel in situations like that. But like, okay, this is why I called you. This is how I've been feeling. This is what triggered this. truly appreciate this is something you might not necessarily have been privy to. What do you think? Like, and then we have that conversation. And sometimes it can go left. It has happened. But
what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Or like they start gaslighting you or like playing down, and then I'm triggered, and then it just goes. Yeah. But
you're not perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the list of all things you've done.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, why didn't you tell me this? But that's not why I brought you here. So what are we talking about now, right?
Heavy on I brought you here.
Yeah. I sent the invite.
This is not your meeting.
Exactly. Sit down.
That wasn't on the agenda, sorry.
I mean, it's real, so that's that.
I actually love that. For me, I agree with that. I think there is a conversation, but I wouldn't invite somebody out to have that conversation. I wouldn't be like, come to my house to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't go to your house and your safe space and ambush you with that type of conversation. Yeah. I would text you and ask for a call or just call you. Right. And be honest, open and honest that, hey, I want to have a difficult conversation about our friendship. Yeah. Like, are you free for a call right now? Yeah. Moving on, when considering ending a friendship, how important is it to reflect on the reasons behind that decision? Should individuals communicate these reasons to their friend, or is it better to simply part ways? That's a really good question. And to be honest, the older I get, the more I don't really end friendships. I just demote them. This is something I talk about a lot, but go on.
Yeah, and I used to be someone that never understood that concept because I'm very, I can be quite black and white with how I feel. I'm very much like, it's either we're best friends or like we're acquaintances or like acquaintances. I don't really have a lot of maintenance in my acquaintances. It's more like, when we see each other, we know we're always going to be good. Like, okay. Like, do you know what I mean? But the older I get, the more I realize the importance of just like loose connections, as we work as well, you're in the corporate world. Sometimes you just meet people and you get along with them. They're in your network. They're great people, but they're not necessarily someone that you would open up to about your personal issues. Yeah. And I just think, depending on what the situation is, it doesn't necessarily have to be, I don't want you in my life anymore. It just means you're still in my life. You're not going to know my personal issue. You're not a best friend anymore. Mm-hmm. You're just a friend. Yeah, exactly. And that also is not a bad thing. Exactly. And who knows, maybe you can get promoted in 5 years.
We're gonna put you on.
Yeah, your probation.
What's that? What's that thing where they like watch you?
Probation.
No, the thing where they like a performance plan.
Exactly. A performance review. Yeah. And then you can show me that your pattern of behavior is worthy of a promotion, and then you get promoted. So sometimes it's just like that. People can shift and change. Exactly.
Within the corporate world. Exactly. The corporate world of my life.
Friendships.
Guys, we're joking, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not.
Someone's gonna deep this and be like, "Why are you so corporate?"
I mean, but it's just.
But I agree with the level thing.
I just think that's what it is, because I also think sometimes not everything is worthy of like a. You just don't have to ice people out completely. It depends on what the situation is. I just think the way I look at it and the way I review things is, Arayo, is this something you can move past? Yes. Do you forgive this person? Yes. Do I necessarily trust you? I'm not sure. Cool. You're just demoted. Yeah. It doesn't mean I'm holding this against you or anything. It's just also a boundary. I'm protecting myself because I'm very, very big on once bitten, twice shy. I never like to feel blindsided. If you show me who you are, I just like to take it as what it is, because I've had situations where I've been so blindsided by who someone was, but they showed me countless times. I just chose not to.
Yeah, you chose not to see it.
Not to see it. Mm-hmm. And that's actually one of my flaws I can be very that similar to what you said earlier about that blind loyalty.
Yeah.
Like I can be very, very look at people through rose-tinted spectacles, and I don't want to do that anymore because I do think it's costly.
It is.
And
it is.
At some point, you have to grow up as well and just see things for who they are. So that's why I wouldn't necessarily ice you out if it's something I can move past from, but you're just demoted.
Demoted. I agree. I think your rose-tinted spectacles comes from your heart.
Yeah.
In terms of the question, the reason, do you need to communicate the reason? I agree with you in terms of like picking your battles. Not everything needs to actually be said.
Yeah.
But I also think you have to, like we explained, you can't just blindside someone.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting down and you're like, I want to end a friendship and I want to tell them why, my personal thing is like, I will always keep it high level because for two reasons. One, the only times I've gone into detail with someone about why I'm hurt by something they did or is something I'm trying to hash out.
Yeah.
That I'm planning to continue the friendship. Otherwise, why am I sitting down telling you everything that's wrong with you? Like, it just seems a bit callous if I'm not planning to sit down and give you space to apologize and for us to reconcile. Then it just feels very arrogant.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I feel like, because sometimes I generally think some people love to tell other people about themselves. Not to be like that, but some people
and
love...
they're not doing it from a place of resolution. They're doing it just because I want to tell you about myself.
You're this, you're that, you're this and that and third.
Yeah.
And even if you think this about the person, I do think there's a level of cruelty that comes to that.
Yeah, it's me.
I always say honesty and kindness have to go hand in hand. Honesty without kindness, it's that quote. I didn't come up with the quote. Honesty without kindness is cruel.
Yeah.
And what is it? Kindness without honesty is manipulation or whatever it is lying. I agree with that. You have to, if you just want to be honest and tell them. And sometimes people are loud and wrong. Yeah. You can sit down and tell somebody, I'm not friends with you anymore because there's something wrong with your character. And really, at the heart of it, it was just that your personalities are not compatible.
Exactly.
But you've perceived it as there's something wrong with that character.
Internalized it and you're projecting it on them without it being... You're not looking for a resolution. You know what I mean? You're just looking for... You just want to tell that person about themselves. Yeah. I think there's nothing wrong with being honest with people, but if you're not doing it in like an objective and an empathetic way, then I just think it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Because why are you sitting down and telling me everything wrong with me if you don't want a friendship? You're trying to end the friendship, but you want to list your perception of... So I just think, in terms of going into details, if I was ending a friendship with someone, I would keep it very high level. Look, I don't want us to be friends anymore because I don't think you respect my values. Or it could even be like nothing has happened, but it's just like, I think I'm on a different path in life and I think our friendship really is causing me to contradict that. And if they ask you for an example, give an example. But again, I would just keep it high level. Not high level that you're not giving an answer, but high level that you're never attacking the person, because if you're leaving that, the heartbreak of that friendship ending is enough for that other person. Yeah. Really and truly. So like, don't kick someone when they're down. That's it. Okay, next question is, in cases where someone wants to end a friendship primarily due to personal growth or changing values, how can they communicate this without causing unnecessary hurt or conflict?
I think that's really hard, to be honest, because even though your intention might be in the right place, to have that conversation with someone and for them not to take it personally, I think it would require an extreme level of emotional intelligence and understanding that a lot of people are just not equipped with. Like, and even the most emotionally intelligent person, it's like me telling you, I'm Tommy saying I love you, but I just think we're on like different paths and we don't align. Like, it's just a bit, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how that would be received.
I agree.
So I really don't know how you can say that. I think, I don't know, maybe this is the, I guess, like, I don't know, but I would rather try and help that person.
Oh no, the fixer.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how to have a conversation like that. I've never had that, so I don't think I can answer that.
I think the lover girl and the fixer go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Being a lover girl makes you want to be a fixer.
Yeah, like I would actively try and make you improve yourself if I see that I can do, if it's something I can do something about. Like I'm very much like, if I can help, I want to do it. I'm very much aware that some things are just outside my control. Yeah. But I would rather do that than say that. I don't know if I can say that, I'll be honest.
Wow. I think sometimes our beliefs and the path we choose for ourselves is different from other people. So I'm somebody who it's like, I can think something is a better way to live life, and I can think something is actually a good way to live life. And it's not that I don't care about you, so I'm not going to try and help you, but I have an understanding that I can't force anyone. So I think if I was to advise someone on saying this, I would say being honest and kind and checking your ego at the door. Yeah. If you're having a conversation with someone about ending a friendship due to your personal growth or your changing values, you can't come into it with holier than thou. I just feel like you can't, because then, like what you said, it's just never going to be received well. Yeah. If you say something offensively, you'll be met with defensiveness. Exactly. But I actually think those conversations are important to have, because I think in that situation, it's so easy to do the drift and the shut someone out, because you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable, but I'm like becoming a different person, and honestly, we're no longer compatible, but how do I tell you that? You know? And then you're like, okay, I just won't and avoid you. Just be like, I don't know, what's a good example? Just be like, yeah, like we used to bond a lot over this, but I'm not interested in doing that anymore.
That's because a great way to approach it.
Let's pick something. Let's say you and your friend always gossip and are like, when I say gossip, I use the right word, are like horrible about people. This is a really extreme example, but like, let's say you have a friend that you sit down and you're literally like awful about people. Nothing is left off the table. You will say anything and everything, and you finish people together. You sit down, blah blah blah. This one, oh, she's this, like strangers, anything. Yeah. And let's say you are like, look, I'm trying to get closer to God. I need to be careful about my mouth and things I say, and I'm like trying to love people, right? Yeah. It would be very hard for you to hang out with that friend, because we all slip into old habits. How will you hang out with somebody that you bonded over this thing? Yeah. The worst thing you can do in ending that friendship would be to go sit down to your friend and say, I don't want to be a mean, awful person anymore. But you are. You know? I think it would just be like, look, like, we always bond over those conversations where we laugh and take the mick out of people, and, you know, we say some crazy stuff. I'm really trying to stop, and I know that's something that, you know, that's just how you have fun, and that's okay, but like, I don't know how we can bond beside that. That's such a silly example again, but like, any other thoughts on that one?
No, I think you pretty much nailed that, because it's all about the balance between being sincere but also not being holier than thou. Yeah. And I think if the reason has to do with a shifting values or previous shared interest, it can come off as holier than thou, especially if it's out of the blue and, you know, you've just done something that's changed your life and you want to distance yourself from this. Yeah. So I think your approach is probably the best way, because I don't really know, like I said earlier on, how I would navigate. That's something I'll definitely have to pray about and like really sit on it, because I also don't want to offend anyone, you know, and conversations like that rarely land well.
It requires emotional intelligence to have a conversation. It requires emotional intelligence to receive it. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if you know that's not someone's strength, maybe then, I don't know. Drift away, block them. No, I'm kidding. Ghost. Just kidding. At the end of the day, if none of this works, ghost. Anyway, next question. Okay, so what strategies or approaches can someone use when they realize it's time to end a friendship, but they're struggling to take that final step?
I just think you need to be upfront. I think have a conversation. If it is something that you absolutely do not want to tolerate, put on your big girl or guy pants on and just walk away. Don't linger, because that doesn't help you or them.
Yeah.
So,
I think the thing about lingering is it builds resentment. Because you've mentally checked out the friendship, but you're staying in it.
Yeah.
So then you're not addressing any issues, but you're just getting angry and angry and angry. And then I fully believe this, but I think once you've decided that you don't like things about someone, they're the quote unquote villain at the time. But the minute you decide to stay in it and start to rack up a long list of things you hate and then start acting on it without explaining it, I think you become the villain.
Absolutely. You're the same person. You literally are. You're mirroring each other. Yeah, it becomes a mirror then, because to see a change in someone, I think you also have to change yourself. Yeah.
Wow, can you explain that? I love that.
I just think all the relationships we have in our life are a mirror, and it reflects some part of ourselves. And sometimes when we're in a state of conflict and tension and you're offended or you're provoked by the other person, you kind of forget that you also could do something about the situation. It's very easy for us to wait for another person to change their behavior. But if we change something within ourselves, that could also change the situation. And it just becomes more balanced. It's like the number 8.
It's like, look at you giving us analogies. That's actually so true.
Yeah.
Something for me to think about. Okay. What approaches would I advise if you're struggling to take that step? In terms of how I would handle it, I would pray, then act. But the key thing is act. I've been guilty of in the past praying about something and not doing anything. Do you get what I mean? Like, gosh, God, should I still be in this friendship? I'll pray every day. Oh gosh. And then I've not done anything. There's no conversation that's been had. There's nothing.
You're not proactive.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, sure, I mean, obviously, I guess this details to people who believe in God and want to pray. Yeah. But I would say, I genuinely think God gives me so much guidance. I would pray and then I would act. I would do something about the situation. Like, if you are feeling this way, don't sit on your hands. Act. Whatever it is, the act could be picking up the phone and calling this person. And just saying, this is how I'm feeling. We've said that so many times, but I genuinely think you'd be honest and don't invite them out for coffee.
Please don't do that.
Please don't invite them out for coffee. If you want to, that is one strategy approach I wouldn't take.
Yeah.
I did there's a time, this is so funny. There was a time I was debating ending a friendship.
Okay.
I'm so glad I didn't. Oh my gosh. I was in my feels and I was like hurt, and there was like, it wasn't like a big hurt, it was like little hurts, right? And so the little hurts, I wasn't addressing them because I wasn't like fully deeping it. I'd get hurt and then forget.
Right.
And then I think one thing happened that just made all the little hurts like rush in. And I was in this place where I was I think I was also going through a downtime. And I was like, I don't want to be friends with this person anymore. And I did a Google, like, how do I end this friendship, And Google, I think wikiHow or something, don't verify this because I don't know, has something about taking them out to coffee and ending the friendship. And I thought,
that is such bad advice.
It's such bad advice. And like, for me, why I didn't end that friendship is I actually did an evaluation of why do I value this friendship. And I was like, oh my gosh, it'd be so stupid of me to end this over this. Anyway, moving on. Last question on the topic of how do you lose a friend in 10 days is, how does the concept of closure apply to friendships? Do we owe it to ourselves or our former friends to seek closure? Or is closure something we can find within ourselves?
I think so. I think closure is something you can find within yourself.
Same.
I think that seeking closure thing is so overrated because most of the time, we really think about it, you're not seeking closure, you're seeking validation about how you feel.
Ooh! You should write it, but you come up with some great one-liners today.
Amen.
Say that again.
What did I just say?
You're not seeking
you're
closure.
Not seeking closure. You're seeking validation about how you feel. And similar to what I said earlier on, you know yourself more than, or you should know yourself more than anybody else. And if you've been very honest and objective, and it's something that it's not an impulsive decision, it's a well thought out decision, and you've had the conversation, say for instance, that didn't go well, you've prayed about it, God has revealed to you what you should do about it, why do you need closure?
Yeah.
Like, what are you, like,
What are you closing?
Like,
Yeah.
what are you actually closing?
Yeah.
So I just think sometimes just leave things as it is.
Yeah.
Like, we don't always have to push and pull and tug. If, let's let it be, don't force anything. Like,
let the dust settle.
Exactly.
It's dusty right now,
Exactly.
but the dust will settle.
Exactly.
And I think on the person on the receiving end, let's say someone has ended a friendship with you and you're like, but I need closure. I also agree that closure can come with yourself, because that person can sit down and tell you, you know, why they ended the friendship, but it might just actually lead to more questions from you. And it can lead to you questioning yourself. Like I said earlier, yes, some people are completely justified in what they're telling you, but some people are projecting and some people just want to tell you about yourself. Yeah. And it's actually not a true reflection of who you are. Do you get what I mean? It's a personality clash issue rather than a character issue, that there's actually something wrong with you. Yeah. And in your seeking closure, you might start to diminish self by trying to mold to what someone else wants you to be. Yeah. You know, so I think I do agree with you. I think closure can definitely come from you. So let's talk about the aftermath. This is the last part of How to Lose a Friend in 10 Days. Okay. The aftermath. Okay? How do you handle the guilt and potential fallout of ending a long-term friendship? Is there a right way to do it?
I think just moving on with respect and integrity. You don't, once you've ended the friendship, you said everything you have to say. You don't need to keep talking to everybody about it.
Word.
Because,
speak on it.
One, I'm bored, yawn. Two, it's just, there's no point. Yeah. You know what I mean? You've said everything you need to say before. Yeah. I don't think you need to keep repeating it. And also, you're not, by doing that, you're prolonging the healing process for both of you, because whether you realize it or not, you're still energetically intertwined. Like, I believe that. So you continuously introducing the conversation and just always talking about it, I just think you're reliving it in a different way. So I think just moving on with just honesty, integrity, and just letting it be what it is, like being okay with this new change, adapting accordingly. And I also think time really I know they say time doesn't heal everything, but I think in friendship breakups, time really does help, because time will also give you clarity about what it was. And sometimes you even realize, oh, wow, this is why this had to end.
Sometimes time even makes you realize it was just never that deep.
Exactly.
What was so deep to me at 15, at 24, I'm like, okay.
That is so true. Yeah.
So I can only imagine at 50, at 35, what I'll be like. Was that why we ended up? I bet let me call this person. It's not that deep. Yeah. You know? So I think time heals, but time also makes you objective.
Yeah, and also detached. Like you're not emotionally charged as you probably were when the situation happened. Yeah. Which is why I also think it's important to not be impulsive with your reactions and like just let things sit and then revisit it, so you know you're looking at it through a clear mind rather than just the intense emotions you're feeling.
Yeah. There's something else you said that I just thought was so great, because it's something I had a bad habit of doing. Yes, when the friendship ends, rehashing it loads of times. Oh, okay. I had a bad habit of like being like, to a close friend, talking about that friendship that ended, and then she did that, and it's just, why did that happen that way, or he did this, and like, look at how it's unfolded, and the friendship has fully ended. Like, why every month am I sitting down with one of my close friends just so I can like release about the friendship? Like, I realized I had a bad habit of doing that, and it was because I hadn't healed from the friendship and I was still holding on to that hurt. But two, it was like my way of processing things. But in speaking to other people about it, I was also inviting people to also speak over that thing.
Right.
So like you said, it was just constant energy towards it.
Yeah.
And I'm really learning now just to like, there's something you don't have to speak.
Yeah.
Like, just wait.
Yeah.
In terms of the guilt, I generally think if you know you made the right decision, and if you're so certain of that, then you have to let go of that guilt. Because at the end of the day, sometimes people make decisions out of guilt, and I always think that's wrong. Like, out of guilt, you reach out to the person and say, you were always, you just spinning the block or whatever people say. Out of guilt, you just be acting weird. Like, I think if you know your decision was right, forgive yourself for, if you feel guilty about ending it, forgive yourself and celebrate your friendship for what it was.
Exactly.
It helped me during this time. Like, I genuinely, and I know it's like, because I've said this to a friend before and it like rocked the boat and they got offended, and I had to explain to them, no, it doesn't mean like I'm like on a ticking time being like, when is this friendship going to end? But I genuinely believe that not everybody's going to be in your life forever. Not everyone is a forever friend. Some people are for a season, and you don't know who is going to be for a season. You don't. Do you get what I mean? So like, I'm not saying I evaluate all my friendships and I'm like, oh, you're going to leave the next day, and I'm not planning towards it. But I just have such an awareness that like,
that's just the cycle of life.
That's life. Like, I don't know it's gonna be forever. I hope so. Of course, I hope so. Like, I enjoy being your friend, but like, that is not something that is so assured for life. And so celebrate it for what it was. What did you learn from it? Exactly. That season of being their friend, and then let it go. Like, you made the right decision.
Literally, stand on business.
Yeah, standing on business all of 2024. Last question of the podcast.
Okay.
How do you navigate the emotional aftermath of ending a friendship, especially if there's a long history involved? Are there specific coping mechanisms or support systems that can help ease the transition?
Journaling is the first thing that comes to mind, just because when you journal, first, depending on how you decide to approach it, but for me anyway, I always start with like, I feel blah, 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 blah. And then as you continue to write, you really just start to process things a lot better, and you become more in touch with how you feel. And I like journaling because it's on paper, or I guess you could do it online, but the point is there's an account for it. So you can also see the progression from how you felt in March to how you felt in July.
Ooh, I love that.
Yes, so I think that definitely does help that emotional roller coaster, because it does have, it's ups and downs. Some days you can be okay, and some days you're like mourning a friendship in a way.
100%.
And other days you might be indifferent and you might not think about it. So, or you could even see something that reminded you of that person. Like, I also think talking to people, but just make sure you're talking to the right people, and make sure you're not approaching it from like, I don't like this person. You're not approaching it from a negative point of view. Because I'm also really big on just try not to be negative. I know it's easier said than done, but just don't even keep that in your energy. Like, just let it be. Let it go.
Yeah.
And letting it go is not just letting it go emotionally, it's like letting it go energetically as well. Just letting it flow. So,
and you can't let go something you don't know, like you haven't addressed.
Exactly.
Like, how can you don't even know what you're letting go of. So you actually have to let go of something. It's not simply like, oh, okay, forget, it's done, and you don't process any of it. To let go, you actually have to go through the process of dealing with the issue to let it go.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that's also very biblical, like in terms of like, but in terms of like stories of journeys, God has taken people on, not in just forgiving people, like just genuine healing journeys. There is a process to it.
Exactly.
Where they go deep into that thing and heal it. Like, it isn't just a sudden like click fingers, or like click fingers, I'm gonna forget this and be positive. Like, you have to process things to let it go. You have to process things to forgive. Forgiving isn't something you can just do. I mean, there's some things you can forgive in the moment, like, but obviously the bigger things
takes time.
Yeah.
Definitely. Just be gentle with yourself as well. You're human, and this too shall pass.
True. And sometimes with a long history, you might think, maybe I should revisit this friendship, or like, I miss this person so much. Especially if you lose like a best friend. Mm-hmm. That's a huge gap to have in your life.
Yes, I've definitely kind of gone through something like that. And it's so weird because for me, there were times when I would receive positive news, and she was usually like the first person I would tell.
Yeah.
And just knowing that we're just not that anymore.
Yeah.
It was quite an adjustment. Yeah, but I'm fine.
Period.
But you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, also, this sounds really, I don't know. I always tell myself, you're not the first person to go through something, and this is just part of life. Mm-hmm. Everyone will go through this, or might go through this at some point in their life, and you'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
You'll actually be fine.
You'll be fine. I agree with that. You'll actually be fine. So we've covered when is it time to lose a friend, how do you lose a friend, and the aftermath on how to lose a friend in 10 days. We don't know if our advice will help you drop that friend in 10 days. But
do at your own risk.
I do at your risk. I cannot promise you 100% success rate. Maybe the person will
Results might differ.
Yeah. Results depend on emotional maturity and level of closeness in friendship. But yes, that is how to lose a friend in 10 days. Thank you so much, Arayo.
Thank you for having me. Well, honestly, this was great. I think this is a really good conversation. I enjoyed it.
Any final words, Arayo?
I love you. Thank you guys for listening. And nurture your friendships as well. Celebrate your friendships. Invest in your friendships. And pray for your friends. And just love on each other.
I love that. I forgot, at the end of the episodes, I like to ask my guests, what is something that you love about friendship in general, or a specific friend?
Ooh. What I love about friendship is just the authenticity of it and the vulnerability. I am so vulnerable with my friends. Like, even my friend Esther, who is in my room at the moment.
Shout out
to Esther. I love you. We were at lunch yesterday, and she's just someone I can be so vulnerable with. Like, it takes time to know people, but I feel like, and we've been friends since sixth form. We're actually talking about it. It will be 10 years this year or next year. I can't remember.
Wow.
But she's someone that I know I can beat my hand on my chest, and like, she knows me, and she knows all sides to me. She knows funny Araya, she knows moody Araya, she knows like emotional Araya, she knows angry Araya. Like, genuinely, like, the vulnerability and just the love and also the authenticity. Like, it's a safe space as well. I know I can be my complete self. I hope she also feels comfortable being her complete self. But I just love that about friendships, and everything I've said, I can also translate it to a lot of my other close friendships. That's what I love the most. And I just love the memories as well, because you always look back and you're like, oh, I remember when we did this and we did that. I love that outside of my family, I have those close. They're like literally my chosen family, those close relations. Yeah.
I love that.
I'm so big on friendships. Like,
Same.
I love my friends.
I love that.
Real bad.
My thing I love about friendship in general, I'll do it in general one, instead of a specific person. One thing I love about friendship in general is dependability. That's a word, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That I can depend on you. And I think it's something I'm really reflecting and like analyzing my current friendships about. Can I depend on you?
Yeah.
It's not just trust. It's not just like, can I depend on you? Can I lean on you? Will you help hold me up? Right? And there are some people in my friendship circle, like close friends, that when I thought of that, I was like, wow, like, I can really depend on you because A, B, C, D. Like, I had so many real physical examples, memories of times where they were so dependable and strong for me. And like, I think that even as we grow older, I think, and you like start families or whatever you decide to do, having a village will be important.
Yeah.
And the people that make up your village need to be dependable. And I'm so happy that I've found people that I can depend on.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about friendship.
Love that.
Okay, this has been the Messy Friendship Lessons podcast. Listen on everywhere you stream podcasts, actually. But if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to give this a rating.
Yes, please.
If you're listening,
5 stars.
Exactly.
It's not 5 stars.
It's not 5 stars. Keep it to yourself. They're like, no, I didn't like your hot take. 1 star. No, keep it to yourself. If it's not 5 stars, I agree with that. But yeah, if you're listening on YouTube, subscribe wherever you're listening. But thank you for listening. Hope we have you again. Yes. This has been the Messy Friendship Lessons podcast. Thank you, Araya, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.